It is a rematch of the Dodge Bowl. Okay, not completely, but the quarterbacks that played in the Dodge Bowl, I'll get into that in just a second, are playing this Saturday. Clemson and Texas plays in Austin for the first round of the college football playoff. And you have Cade Klubnik, former Westlake High School quarterback, playing against South Lake Carroll, Quinn Ewers. I'm going to dive into that in just a second. First, welcome to the channel. I'm glad you're here. I'm telling you this, my mind is kind of like everywhere right now. I go live and it's just like, maybe I should just turn off this video. No, we're going to keep going. Thanks for joining me. If you've never watched before, I hope you'll drop me a line and say hello. Hope you will subscribe. It is free. So let's talk about the Dodge Bowl. I said the Dodge Bowl. You're like, Brian, what is the Dodge Bowl? Okay, so let me take you back to a time, back in time. It's January the 16th, 2021, and you have South Lake Carroll. That's who Quinn Ewers played for. And Austin Westlake. They met in the 6A Division I Football State Championship in Texas. Now, Quinn Ewers was the number 1 ranked high school prospect in the country. And then you had uncommitted 5-star quarterback Cade Klubnik. And they went head-to-head in this game. Now, you're like, well, hold on. You mentioned something about a Dodge Bowl. What is the Dodge Bowl? I'm glad that you asked. One team was coached by a father. One team was coached by a son. I told you, I don't know what it is. I just totally went blank here. But Todd Dodge was the coach of Austin, and he was coaching against his son, Riley Dodge. And this game was big for so many reasons. I mean, it's 6A Texas high school football. You have two very well-known, highly recruited quarterbacks, and then you have a father and son going head-to-head in this massive game. Now, in that game, Cade Klubnik's team, Westlake, they won the game commandingly, 52-34. Cade had some nice runs. He had a touchdown pass, at least a touchdown pass in there. Quinn Ewers and the boys, the guy threw for 351 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he had a couple of interceptions. He threw to now his teammate on the Texas Longhorns team, their safety, Michael Taff. And Michael Taff was friends with Cade. And so there's that. There's another player on the team who was a teammate of Cade's, and now he's playing for the Longhorns. Be playing against Cade this week. But just the interesting fact that these two teams went head-to-head, father and son head-to-head, and then you have these two quarterbacks of the magnitude that they were at the time, and now they're going to play against one another for even more marbles, okay? So, how could this play out? And I've talked about this. I was actually on TJ's show on College Football Addiction tonight, which if you're watching this in the future, will not be tonight, but today, as of the recording of this video, this is Tuesday, December the 17th at about 5:30. So in about 2.5 hours, the show that I was on, I was invited to be on for the Fox affiliate in Austin, Texas. I was asked this question. I've had to verbalize it in different ways, but basically it's the same question. Who's the pressure? Who has the most pressure right now? Who's the pressure on? And I look at this matchup, Cade Klubnik versus Quinn Ewers, and I ask myself, who has more pressure here? And I've said this in different ways, but it's the same answer. First, Texas has more pressure on them. We know why Texas has more pressure on them. Texas hasn't won a national championship since Mac Brown still had color in his hair. And that was 2005. It was a wonderful experience. Their last national championship appearance, Colt McCoy was leading the team. They lost to Alabama during the early days, right before their whole big run started. I mean, it was just the very beginning of it. But I step back and I look at Texas, and Texas, the pressure is on them. All the money they put into football. They're only second to Ohio State, or they're right up there with Ohio State and spending ungodly amounts of money on football. The transfer portal. They blow a lot of money on the transfer portal. Their coach is the third highest paid head coach in all of college football. They put a lot of money into the program, okay? And this is Texas. So that spills on over into the two quarterbacks in their head-to-head. Cade Klubnik has pressure on himself because I'll guarantee you, and I've heard some people talk about Cade. They've sent me some emails of people who know Cade, or one particular person, who knows Cade. And I've heard some really good things about him. I'm talking about as a person. He's a pretty good guy. He's an ultra competitive fellow, and he's loyal. But with that said, the guy can play football, and I know that he wants to win a national championship for himself. With that said, Cade Klubnik comes into this game leading a team that, in so many people's opinion, shouldn't be in the college football playoff. The only reason they're in the college football playoff is because of the automatic bid, because they won the ACC championship. Now, folks, I know some people are going to get into the comment section, maybe in the chat section, and say, well, Brian, that's all that matters. Okay, great, that's all that matters, but let's be honest with ourselves. If we're being logical about this, we understand, yes, the automatic bid is an automatic bid because you win your conference. Other than that, Clemson hasn't looked like a college football playoff team. They really haven't. So Cade Klubnik comes in here with this team who doesn't supposed to be here, and he's going into Austin, Texas. Yes, he's playing in front of old family and friends. He's playing against former teammates. He's playing against Quinn Ewers, somebody he went head-to-head with in this state championship game. High profile, by the way. State championship game. Played at AT&T Stadium there in Arlington, Jerry's World. So he's going back, and yeah, he has that regular human anxiety of wanting to go out there and play. But as far as pressure, Quinn Ewers has all the pressure in the world on him because he's playing for Texas and all those things I mentioned just a second ago. And then on top of that, he has Arch Manning sitting behind him. And all Quinn has to do is not even really mess up. Quinn Ewers can go out there and maybe just not play to his potential, or maybe he goes out there and they move the ball, but they have a couple of drives that stall and they have to settle for a field goal. And as sure as a rectum stinks, you're going to start hearing people going, put Arch in, put Arch in, put Arch in, put Manning in, put Manning in. Hey, you need to use Manning. Well, you know what? Maybe he can give us that. Maybe he can give us that momentum we need, the extra push. Cade Klubnik doesn't have that. In fact, most people at Clemson, not most people, people like myself who ask the question, what if, because if can quickly become when, what if Cade goes down, do we have someone that we trust coming in behind him? I'm not knocking Vizina, but I'm just saying, used to, you could look on the bench and you had Chase Bryce, you had Kelly Bryant for a short amount of time on the bench. Or I say short amount of time, for a lot of the time Deshaun was there. And then when you went to the whole battle between he and Trevor Lawrence, you had Zarek Cooper. A lot of people forgets about him. And then you had DJ, that though he was a freshman and none of what has happened now had happened then, there was a lot of promise. You just have to understand. You have to understand that Clemson's not in a place to where they have a great, or again, I'm not trying to knock Vizina, but there's no hoopla behind Clemson's backup quarterback. With Quinn Ewers, there is. And all Quinn has to do is fart around a little bit, just be a human being, and guess what? Put Arch in. Hey, Sark, why aren't you putting Arch in? Hey, Clemson seems to be giving Quinn problems. Oh, Quinn overthrew someone. Oh, Quinn didn't check down. Put Arch in. Put the Manning in. So the pressure, to me, is on Quinn just for that. And then, of course, the $250 million spent on football and not having a national championship since 2005. Again, Cade Klubnik doesn't have a national championship, but his head coach is making his 7th appearance in the college football playoff, and Clemson's had 2 national championships in the last 8 years. So my point in saying all of this is that it's not like Dabo's sitting over there wringing his hands going, am I ever going to get a national championship? Sark, on the other hand, doesn't have a national championship. So that puts more pressure on Sark to put in someone who's going to ensure he gets to that next game. The next game's against Arizona State. Whoever wins this game goes to play Arizona State. They're not playing Oregon. They're not playing against a Georgia team that both of our teams have seen, and it hasn't worked out for either one of us. So whoever wins this game has Arizona State. Again, I've said this over and over this week. I have a lot of respect for what Kenny Dillingham has done at Arizona State. That's not an easy job. It's not an easy job, especially with everything he had to take over and fix immediately. But he did it. And pause there. The next time you're sitting watching some football team who can't quite get it together and blah, 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 just think back to a 34-year-old who takes over a team that he's always wanted to, take over. And I want to say he was 32 at the time when he took over. This is his second season. And he turned them around. So, some people just aren't cut out for certain jobs. But getting back to Cade Klubnik and Quinn Ewers, the pressure's on Quinn. Texas doesn't have a national championship anytime in recent years. You'd have to go back 19 years. Clemson, 8 years. 6 years. 6 years ago, Clemson won the national championship, beat the crap out of Alabama by 4 touchdowns. So, all the pressure's on Quinn. Now, what do I think that I'm not going to speak to Quinn Ewers as much as I'm going to speak on Cade. Because I've watched Cade play a lot more than I've watched Quinn play. But I'll say this about Cade Klubnik. The best way that Clemson's offense can set him up for success is to be creative from beginning to end. Know how to strategically utilize his mobility, and don't be afraid to stretch the field. Texas has got a good defense. Now, the good thing about Clemson and the past 2 teams that they've played, the last 2 teams that Clemson has played has been who? SMU, a team that was number 4 in the country in stopping the run. A team that coming into the Clemson game was tied for 11th in team sacks. And then the game before that was against the feathered foe of South Carolina. And that team was ranked number 3 or tied for number 3 in team sacks. Came in with 39 sacks on the season, playing against the teams that they had played, the Alabamas, the LSUs. They'd played those teams, the Texas A&Ms. And they only got 1 sack against Clemson. 1 sack. An offensive line that's been beat up. An offensive line who, this is their first year with Matt Luke. And he's work some miracles there. That's what happens when you hire an expert. We need an expert at every coaching position. And you want to see the team take off and truly be a national championship quality team year in, year out, hire great coaches across the board. Brilliant coaches. Use Matt Luke as your benchmark and then start measuring your current coaching staff against him. Do they measure up to him? Well, no. Anyway, that's another video. Cade Klubnik, utilize his mobility, give him time to throw the ball downfield, move the pocket when needed, and then take advantage, as I said, of these past two teams that just played Clemson. Take advantage of the experience you just had. Let me put it that way. Take advantage of the experience of playing the very first game against Georgia. Neither one of these teams here can beat Georgia. You know, I know that Texas just lost to Georgia, just barely lost to them in the SEC championship. And playing Georgia in Atlanta is very, very tough. Very, very tough. And I know that Texas played way better against Georgia than what Clemson did. But here's the point. Neither one of the teams could beat Georgia. Neither one of them. And that game in the middle of the year against Georgia, I mean, Georgia pinned their ears back and came after them. Clemson can use that experience of having to deal with Georgia and then look across the ball at Texas and question, were they as tough? Are they as tough to play against their defense as it is to play against Georgia, South Carolina, or maybe even SMU's run defense? And that's how I think Cade Klubnik, how they need to approach the game for Cade Klubnik. Be creative from beginning to end. Anticipate the adjustments. Don't get away from stretching the field, strategically stretching the field. Don't get away from it. Use his mobility. Use their aggression against them. And that's how I could see Clemson actually, if they were to upset Texas, and it would be considered an upset, folks. This would be an upset because, again, Clemson isn't supposed to be there. That is the pressure that's on Quinn Ewers. The pressure's on him because if he loses to this Clemson team, or if they play close with Clemson, or Clemson plays close with them, y'all, I've got my words twisted around. I just need to go to bed and just end this video. If Clemson plays close with Texas and Texas wins, of course Longhorn fans are going to be happy that they moved forward and they're going to play Arizona State. But what happens when they play Oregon? That'll be in the back of everybody's mind. You say it won't until you have to play, say, Oregon. And it's like, we had problems moving the ball against Clemson, the team that doesn't supposed to be there. We had problems beating them. The pressure's on. I'm going to get to the comments section real quick. Let me see. Roger Parks, all things considered, I think our quarterback has more tools in the toolbox, but their team is better coached. Good to see you, Roger Parks. Roger Parks supports the channel on a monthly basis. You see the symbol beside his name. I appreciate it. I agree with you 100%, Roger. Their team has a better coaching staff than Clemson. And I know somebody in the comments section, I haven't even looked there. Okay? Haven't even looked. But I'm going to tell you this. There's going to be a comment in the comment section later on, or maybe there's a chat somewhere in here I haven't seen, that someone is going to say something along these lines. You mean, what about Dabo? Dabo's not an X's and O's guy. He's not an X's and O guy. He's not. He's talked about it openly, and I totally respect that about him. That he's like, hey, I'm a CEO type of coach. I hire in guys, and they do what I tell them. I'm not knocking that. The offensive and defensive scheme has not been sufficient for a full game this entire season. And so I think Cade and the players can actually win this ball game. 24/7 Sports says preseason, Clemson has the 5th most talented roster in all of college football. That's them, not me. What was their criteria? How many 5 and 4 stars you have on your team. Clemson's ranked number 5, y'all. So Clemson's not suffering on talent like everybody lies and says they are. Clemson suffers on the talent when it comes to the sideline. So I agree with you. May there from the Heart Cath Lab. Good to see you, Chase. Chase supports the channel on a monthly basis. Sorry I missed your call today, buddy. I think it was today or yesterday. I think it was today. I've been out and about working. It's good to see you, my friend. I hope there's no cardiac events today for anyone. Joey Cogdale coming in late, Brian, but thank goodness for the replay. What you think? Can we overcome the 11 and a half and whip them? I will be doing my preview. I'm going to try to do that tomorrow. I've done the previews for the other games, but this is Clemson and Texas. This is my team playing, and so I want to get a little closer to kickoff before I do the preview, and maybe someone's head falls off their shoulders and rolls across the practice field. I want to be careful there, but can we overcome 11 and a half without spoiling my preview? Oh, absolutely. Again, you haven't your offensive and defensive coaching coordinators hasn't coached a complete game in 13 games. What's so special about number 14? We could say, oh, this is for the college football playoff. Well, what about ACC championship? That was to get into the college football playoff. That was for win number 10, and that's for the ACC championship, and they still blew that lead. Oh, let's talk about South Carolina the week before. You're at home. You're playing the Chickens. The Chickens are actually good. What does Clemson do? Still. I mean, folks, I know you can call me Debbie Downer and Negative Nelly. That's totally fine. In fact, I find it amusing. I find it amusing that you would call me that when I'm just telling you the truth. So if you're just paying attention and kind of sober up from the fandom, the question is, what's so special about game number 14? Because all those other games were for all the marbles, especially the last two. And their offensive and defensive coaching staff couldn't pull it together. Let me rephrase that. Their schemes couldn't pull it together consistently. Players, do I think that our players could win this game based on talent? Absolutely, Joey. But I'll do my preview. I'll do my preview over the next few days. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for the call back, buddy. Watch the college highlights from the new wide receiver. He could be another weapon on the outside. No, I've been working. If I told you what I was doing today, you would absolutely in between be shocked and laugh, but I won't go there, what I was doing today, for work. But, anyway, good to see you in there. Yeah, it's at 6'5" and 205 pounds. Tristan Smith is going to be, I think he's a great addition to our arsenal. We need more guys, that gives Cade more and more options and gives the coaching staff more and more, take away less and less excuses of why things are not being pulled together. Let's get through here. Tyson Yarborough, it's good to see you, my friend. Joe Hughes, good to see you. Puffin, Gamecock fan here. Congrats on making the playoffs, but y'all are 0-2 this season against SEC, so I'm taking Texas. James Lannister, I think Sark will have a shorter leash on Ewers and Clemson than he had versus Georgia. Every program should be spending money on school sports. That's what it takes. Every time we play a smaller school like Clemson, y'all always talking about someone else's money. We'll make it quick. Okay, J-Day, I hear you. I just hope y'all don't have to play Georgia again, because for some reason, all that money still can't beat Georgia. But it's good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. Quinn Ewers has never beat Cade Klubnik, not even in the Elite 11. Let's see. Had some coaches before just look at Simmons. He was a 3-star, and then he went in the first round to the NFL. Steel Gamble, sharing the feelings. Clemson, Indiana, SMU, Boise State, and Arizona has no business in the college football playoff. 12 best teams were not selected. Well, there's There's a lot of feelings about that. Y'all need a running back. Yeah. Well, folks, I am just I mean, we're getting closer to this game, and I said this yesterday when I was on TJ's show, and you can go look at the comment section, which is fun. I used the word whisper, that people will be whispering Pine Texas is back if they play a close game, and of course the Texas fans came in extremely confident. I tell you this, really, really confident for a team who hasn't won a national championship, no matter how much money they've spent, no matter what celebrities on the sideline. They came in pretty hot, and they haven't won a national championship since, I think boy bands were still a thing. But anyway, either way, the pressure is on Texas for that reason. And I think that takes the pressure off of Cade versus the pressure that is on Quinn. There's pressure on Cade, but he doesn't have near the pressure that Quinn Ewers has on him. So that's going to be interesting to see how that really, how it all comes down. Let me see. You think they might play Arch Manning instead of Quinn Ewers? I don't see that unless Ewers really messes up. Now, Arch Manning will play in this game. You will see him play in this game because I want to say they've brought him into basically every big game that they've played, and they've brought him into other games. So Arch Manning hitting the field is nothing new for Texas. So if they're playing Georgia, they'll bring him in. If they're playing A&M, I think they brought him in against A&M. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure they did. So I plan on seeing Arch Manning, but to see him being the starter, I don't see that. Quinn would have to really, really mess up for Arch Manning to take over completely and totally. Well, folks, y'all take care of yourselves. It's good to see you. Drop your comments. Who is the pressure on? Who do you see winning this ball game? Whew. It's getting close. It's going to be here at any moment now. Y'all take care of yourself, and as always, go Tigers.